Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
And happy Monday to you, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor. Chad Chambers producing for us today, manning that KFH hotline at 869-1240. We've got some giveaways for you today, some contests you can enter. Shreyas Latta joins us top of next hour, KU Insider, to talk KU's big week and moving forward, their chances at the Big 12. We'll take a look at all of that. K-State talk today, Wichita State. Disappointing outcome yesterday. We'll get into that as well as we make our way through here. Andy Reid news is on the horizon as well. Tommy, good morning. Happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you this morning. Beautiful weekend outside. I hope everybody got out and enjoyed the weather. It's going to be another great day today. I think tomorrow too, before the bottom falls out. But we always have this. There's always like one stretch of really warm weather, but it's not real. It's fake. And we try to enjoy it, but then winter comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah, Mother Nature's fooled a little bit here. It was beautiful weather, and we were outside, and it's sort of like I just have to take the punishment because it's also allergy season earlier than it normally is. So, I think Mother Nature's been tricked by this weather a little bit too. But right now, it's like I got to be outside. It's too beautiful out there, and then I go out there and just get smashed by allergies. But it's worth it. Just go stand in the sun. It was very, very nice weekend. We made our way out, Tommy, to the sports book out at the Kansas Star for the first time. That was
we did.
It's really nice out there. It's it's the same as a lot of spots in Vegas. It's a good setup there. So enjoyed a little time out there. If you haven't made it out there, it's pretty cool. First time for me being out there. I'm probably fortunate I'm not out at the casino. I love casinos, love them. I love to gamble. I love to play craps. I love all that stuff. And I really I don't play much since we've moved here. And, we first moved here and I'm like, uh-oh, they have craps table. I'm like, uh-oh, they have a poker room. I thanks to my kids, probably as much as anything else. I haven't had the time, but I always enjoy the time I get to spend out there. It's always fun.
Yeah, I'm not a craps player. And you saw that firsthand this weekend. I'm watching you and one of our friends playing craps, and I have no idea what's going on. I've played other games, but craps is not one of them. And I told you later, I'm like, there's like a whole different language to play craps, and I had no idea what the heck was going on. Looked fun though.
Yeah, it is fun. It's the most fun. It is, it's fast though, so you can be out pretty quickly. But when you get on a heater, there's nothing like a good craps table, good hot craps table. But enjoyed the time out there. It was fun. Watched a little college hoops, a lot of college hoops this weekend. We'll get into all of it as we make our way through. I do want to start, though, with this Andy Reid news. This came out about an hour ago. So the report is that the Chiefs, and this is according to the NFL Network initially, that the Chiefs want to give Andy Reid a contract extension. It would make him the highest paid coach in the league, according to the NFL Network, which would be more than like $15 million a year. We don't get a lot of coach contract details. It's not really that big a deal. We don't really care, I should say. But it is interesting news, as all the questions lingered about his future. And I haven't seen the total number of deals on an extension, total number of years. So I don't know what that means for long term, but I do for the short term. It would obviously lean in and indicate that, they're going to be married together for at least one more season. And then it kind of makes me wonder, Tommy, how much longer is Andy Reid going to coach? Because he's not as old as people think. And I honestly can't imagine him doing anything else with his life.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be in it for a while. I honestly do. And I know we had a ton of conversations leading up to the Super Bowl about what his future was going to look like and if he would walk away. And really, there were a couple of different things that throughout that entire process that would hint at maybe him stepping away. But really, I think that whenever you win a championship, it reaffirms your commitment. I think that there are rare scenarios where there are players in any sport or coaches in any sport that win a championship and decide they're going to walk away on top. And that happens from time to time. But as I've said all along, why in the world, if you're Andy Reid, would you want to walk away when you've got Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback in his prime? It doesn't make any sense, because somebody's going to get a chance to coach Patrick Mahomes throughout the course of the years that he's in his prime. So why not it be the guy that has taken him to 3 Super Bowls or 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them? So I think that is definitely a big key to that. It would be different, I think, a little bit if Kansas City didn't have a generational quarterback under center in Patrick Mahomes, but they do. And if I'm Andy Reid, that's going to re-energize me year after year after year. And really, that whole dynasty talk, you can cement yourself as one of, if not the greatest coaches in NFL history, if you can continue this on.
Yeah, look, that will always be debatable on who the greatest coach ever is. And what's interesting about Andy Reid, and I think he may be the most brilliant offensive mind ever. I'm not sure people right now would say Andy Reid's the greatest coach of all time. I don't think that vibe is out there.
He's up there, but he's not probably
right. He's in the conversation. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the best, maybe best offensive mind we've ever seen. But I'm not sure anybody would say that. But I mean, I guess the question becomes, could he get there? And yes, I mean, in the short term, if you get 3 in a row, you're immediately now in that conversation. I don't think there's any question about that. Like, you enter now that conversation. Andy Reid's going to turn 66 in less than a month. It's like, from what we've seen historically, right, there's still plenty of room for more coaching for him. He loves it. I don't think there's any question about his passion for it. He enjoys it. So, if you look at it, even if he just went to 70, you've got Mahomes. How old is Patrick Mahomes? 30. Is he turned 30?
Patrick
He hasn't
Mahomes?
turned 30 yet.
28.
Yeah, 28. So, even it's not, I don't think he's going to coach like for the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career, because that could be another 10, 12 years. I don't think Andy Reid's going to push 80, when he's coaching. So how many more of those years do these two have? I would think if something doesn't pull him away, and this is what gets so hard. When I'm, 65, I'm probably going to want to just hang out with my grandkids and do whatever. But, you get bored. He's still got it, clearly. So, whenever these conversations come up, I'm like, I don't think so. But they come up for a reason, I guess. So is it 3 years? Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? I mean, I think somewhere between 1 and 5 is probably the likely answer. But this next year means everything. You get 3 in a row, and now everybody gets to enter GOAT conversations. All of them, right? Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's already there, and Mahomes is for some people. But Andy Reid joins them. Mahomes maybe gets to the point where it's like, it's not a no-brainer, but if he can get near Brady's total, he'll be there for most people. Kelce already probably is for people, but would put himself there certainly. And Chris Jones, like, where does he enter if he continues to have the impact he has? If he comes back, like, there's a lot of people who get a lot of legacy stuff if they get this third. Brett Veach certainly would enter that. By the way, Andy Reid, as they plan to make him the highest paid, doesn't count against cap, so it's irrelevant for the Chiefs. Why would they not do that? I mean, what difference does it make, right? They want Andy Reid together with Patrick Mahomes. Everybody's going to want this. It will be interesting to see. When the Patriots went for it, when the Cowboys went for it, I'm not sure they had people in these established spots historically. Right? When looking back now, we look at that Cowboys era, and you've got Jimmy Johnson, who honestly probably in a shorter span you'd probably put against any coach. Like, if you had to start from scratch, a dude was incredible. So, but at the time, I don't think we were sitting there thinking, man, Jimmy Johnson's the greatest coach of all time. Right? I don't think certainly people weren't saying that about Troy Aikman. Emmitt Smith was, probably getting into that conversation, but he was still moderately young at that point. Same with Irvin. So, like, it's a little different for the Chiefs now, where you legitimately have, at least in Mahomes, Kelce, and Reid, people that will be involved in the conversations of the greatest that have ever done it. Maybe Chris Jones gets to that point. I mean, I don't think that's out of line. to think he could get there with 2 or 3 more really productive years. So when you start to talk about those things, I do think there's a different sort of pressure now. And I'm not, people may tell me I'm crazy, like the Steelers. I wasn't alive then, so I don't know what the narrative was then with those teams, right? Like I go back as far as about 1992 of remembering things. So, like, I think that this is a little different with the pressure and what's on the line in trying to get this third than maybe there ever has been before.
I think you can probably go back and look at the Bill Walsh years with the Niners. Probably, that's got to be in the conversation as far as dynasties and what he did with Montana than what he did.
But were they ever going
Steve
for
Young
3 in a
coming
row?
in.
I don't know. Let me. I'll check that. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like I don't know how many people have had the 3 in a row opportunity. He had Super Bowls. No, I don't think it was. He had Super Bowl 16, 19, and 23. So no, he was never going for 3 in a row.
Yeah, I think that the other question that it brings up with Andy Reid, and it's something I've never really thought about before, if we're talking about greatest coaches of all time, he's clearly entered into that conversation now. But I don't know if there's been another coach in NFL history, and I'm racking my brain trying to think of one that has done more to change the narrative about his career in the second half of his career than Andy Reid has done. Because remember, he spent close to he was in Philadelphia for 15 years or a little bit more than that, coaching the Eagles. And the narrative then was all about how he won a bunch of games, but he could never win the big one. And, greatest coach to never win a Super Bowl, things like that. That was in the conversation with Andy Reid, even when he came over to Kansas City in the first few years of his time with the Chiefs. And then what he's done in the last 5 or 6 years with Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if there's another coach like, you've got 2 distinct halves of his career. If there's been another coach that has ever done more to change and improve that narrative in the second half of his career than what Andy Reid has done.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like Andy Reid was going to be a Hall of Famer if he never won a Super Bowl, because he would have had just so much success, right? So many wins. And it was all there, and he was already. It's amazing that everyone always asks Brady or Belichick, all that. It takes both, right? Like if you're going to have long-lasting success, everybody contributes. Belichick and Brady got their chance at 3 in 2005, but that was only year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like year 4 or 5 of that marriage. I think it was year 4 at that point. Going into year 5. So even then, like we knew what that greatness was because they had 3 in 4 years, remember, but they didn't get that third. But it was so early on in that, in both the Belichick and Brady lore, that I don't think anybody was putting them there. And then their second stretch of 3 Super Bowls, they went every other. Remember, the even year means the Patriots Super Bowl, that thing. They had a chance looking back in the second time they did it. They because if you get any of the off years and they lost one of those in the Super Bowl and all those kinds of things, but you've got Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey, like these guys are already established in their dynasty as they go for it. It's not the beginning of it like it was for the Cowboys and the Patriots. You're smack right now in the middle of it. Everybody understands the greatness of all these people. So I do think it's a little bit different now than it probably was for the first try for the Patriots, right? And then for that try for the Cowboys. I don't know that it's the same scenario. And Reed at the top of the game, it will be fascinating to see how the opinion on him shifts if they get a third. How many people are going to say Andy Reid's the greatest coach of all time? He didn't get one without Mahomes. Right? He had all those opportunities, all those great seasons. But that's what's so crazy about it, too. You're great because, you won anyway, right? Like you piled up gobs and gobs of wins pretty much no matter who your quarterback was, right? Whether it was mostly with Donovan McNabb and Alex Smith. But then you get that final thing, and now all of a sudden you're on this stretch. To me, that, extrapolates the greatness. Right? Like that enhances the greatness. Like he's had a ton of success for a long time. with all kinds of different quarterbacks. It's just now at the end of this, if they're able to go and achieve this thing that nobody's ever been able to achieve, I do think it puts him in squarely in that conversation. Mahomes is already there. He's already at least in the conversation, I should say. Kelsey, I think, already is the best tight end that's ever done it. And so it will be awesome to see, and I hope we get to see Andy Reid for a little while longer. I guess if it's just 1 year, we get the chance.
Yeah.
In as great as the Chiefs are, I would say it's unlikely that they'll have another opportunity to win 3 in a row. That doesn't mean I don't think they'll win other Super Bowls, I think. But I don't know that they'll get another chance at 3 in a row. So now, like that I am so fascinated by that next year that we get the chance to see it happen, because I don't know that it'll happen again for this group. It's hard to get 2 in a row. This is the first time we've seen it in 20 years just to get to 2, let alone 3.
Yeah, in the context of Brady and Belichick, I think that 2 things can be true at the same time. I think that it can be true that the dynasty with the Patriots, Tom Brady had more to do with that than Bill Belichick did. But I also think that it can be true that Belichick is maybe right now the greatest coach in NFL history. So I think that 2 things can be true. Time, the importance of the quarterback is always going to be bigger than the importance of the head coach, but it doesn't mean that the head coach, isn't still incredible. And so I think that you can relate that back to Kansas City. I think that both things can be true. It can be true that the Chiefs dynasty is more Patrick Mahomes than it is Andy Reid. That's okay. But I think you can still say that Andy Reid is one of, if not the best coaches of all time. It doesn't have to be an either or situation.
No, it doesn't. It's not for Brady and Belichick either. You're right, because it takes both to do it. And NFL coaches, I think, at least in my opinion, by far, the head coach has the most impact on the team's success, right? So in basketball, there were years where I probably could have coached, and I'm overstating this, obviously, probably could have coached Michael Jordan to a championship. Right? Just like go out there and do your thing. Baseball is very different, but it's all about the players always. And no matter what you're doing, I do believe, though, that in the NFL, the head coach has the most impact on the games themselves. They have the most decisions that directly affect the outcome of a game, certainly. And they're all, I don't want to downplay the importance of any of it. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I just think it's higher in the NFL. And so when we talk about Andy Reid was able to win a lot of games with a lot of different quarterbacks in different places and do all those things. That's as much for me, that's as much a part of his greatness as winning these Super Bowls. Now, you've got to have the hardware. We know that when we look at things through an historical context. But just winning that many games over that many years, I mean, that's all a part of it. It's why I think people are crazy for trying to run Mike Tomlin out of Pittsburgh, right? Like, look at the winning they're doing despite not having the quarterback, right? And everyone points to Ben Roethlisberger. Man, Ben Roethlisberger was bad most of the time while he was there. Like, he aged quick. So I love it. They're bringing Reid back, it sounds like. Going to get him, paid up like the top guy, because he is the top guy. And quite frankly, if it doesn't count against the salary cap, it's a no-brainer. Just take care of business. Get that done. That report's out. NFL Network saying the Chiefs plan to make Andy Reid the highest paid coach in the NFL this year. We're fueled up on coffee. Always appreciate it. Mornings at KFH. Everyone around enjoys some Prairie Fire coffee. So thanks to them for providing that. We'll come back. We've got giveaways. We've got contests to tell you about. We'll get caught up on a basketball weekend in the college ranks. We'll do that next on Sports Daily.
.97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Pizza John's open.
KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you on this Monday edition. KFH and Taco Bell have your chance to win a trip for two to the College Hoops Championship Tournament in Kansas City, March 13th through 16th, to cheer on your favorite teams. This trip includes 2 all-session tournament passes and 3-night hotel accommodations. To enter, simply text TB BIG to the number 20357. Want a complimentary breakfast burrito? Just go to kfhradio.com, click on the events page, download the voucher, and then head to any Wichita and surrounding Taco Bell locations, excluding Hutchinson. Your chance to see the College Hoops Championship Tournament and snag a complimentary breakfast burrito from Taco Bell happens here on KFH. That tournament's going to be interesting because it's going to be Kansas's probably only chance at claiming a Big 12 championship. The regular season opportunity took a blow as Houston pulled it out in Baylor, at Baylor in overtime over the weekend. So with that one there, as you take a look at the Big 12 standings, Tommy, and KU was impressive. We'll get to them as we make our way through, but Houston survives that one. Now they get to host Cincinnati. They go to Oklahoma, to UCF, and they host Kansas. So Kansas does get the head-to-head, but you would still need, even to get into the situation 2 games back of the other 3, you would need Houston to lose either at home to Cincinnati or on the road at Oklahoma or UCF. They'll be favored in all those games. The other problem is, Tommy, Iowa State is still in the mix there, and Iowa State won over the weekend, so they're now still a game ahead of Kansas with a game in hand against Kansas. And Iowa State and Kansas do not play again the rest of the year. So you need Iowa State to lose 2 of Oklahoma at home, on the road against UCF, BYU at home, on the road against K-State. Interesting how big of fans KU might be of Iowa State there, of Kansas State there in that final game of the regular season. But KU didn't get any help over the weekend, Tommy, and it may have been the help they had to have to get this done in the regular season.
They didn't get any help, but man, they looked really good against Texas. And I know that we're going to talk more about that with Sharius Latta next hour, but without Kevin McCullough, I mean, they played an incredible game that I didn't think they would be able to accomplish without McCullough on the court. So yeah, they didn't get any help from Houston or Iowa State over the weekend. So it does look unlikely that the Jayhawks are going to be able to get into a position to compete for, to win a Big 12 regular season championship. But you get into the conference tournament, seeding there. The Jayhawks do have that opportunity, as we talked about last week. I think they continue to build their case if they can keep winning in their final few regular season games and the conference tournament to maybe end up back on that 1 line for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and that's to me the most important thing right now. And I do agree. They're at 14 in the net. So there is room. They have big games remaining to get high quality wins that will boost that resume. Certainly. You've got BYU, you've got Baylor, you've got Kansas State, and you've got Houston. At least, and BYU on the road, where is BYU right now? They're still at 13. So those are all going to be, I believe, maybe not K-State at home, but the other 3 will be quad 1 games. And so you've got a chance for 3 more quad 1 wins in that stretch. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be enough, I would imagine. Like, it'll be hard to turn them away from the 1 line. What you would probably have happen is what's probably going to happen anyway, Tommy, is you're probably going to end up with 2 Big 12 teams on the 1 line and 1 on the 2 line would be my guess. And it could be 1 on the 1 line and 2 on the 2 line, which is, I think, where most of the bracketologists have it right now. But the league is so good, and there's so many opportunities for big wins down the stretch. I mean, the big thing is the McCullough injury. But yeah, I mean, you win that game. That's what you want to see. But now they got to go on the road, Tommy, though, without McCullough, and they don't do it until this weekend. But that's where you got to see it, right? Like, well, I say that McCullough may play this weekend, but the news there, and we'll get into it a little more for the details with Sharius. But Bill Self said this is week to week. Like, at this point, they just kind of hope to have him right, at any point. And so it's like, oh, the good news, there's there's the bad news, good news, bad news situation. So I don't know what to make of that. If they don't have McCullough, I want to say their chances are slim to none at Natty, but then they look like that against Texas. So who knows what can happen in those moments of adversity, I guess.
Well, that was the concerning thing. We get the report about 30 minutes or an hour before game time that McCullough was not going to play. And I immediately thought, okay, I know the game is inside Allen Fieldhouse, but this team is thin enough already without McCullough. What's it going to look like? Is it going to end up being a grinded out game that, might come down to the final minute or last couple of possessions? And it didn't. It didn't do that at all. And the Jayhawks were able to be pretty efficient offensively, even without McCullough. I mean, I know that they leaned on Hunter Dickinson. I thought Nick Timberlake shot the ball better than what we've seen him, do throughout the conference season so far. And, he was able to do some things that weren't just, stand there and shoot. There was a great lob to him from DeJuan Harris that was incredible to watch. I didn't think Nick Timberlake had that kind of game in him, but he does. So that was a benefit too. I'm not suggesting that Nick Timberlake is a guy that you want to lean on, but if you don't have Kevin McCullough, or even if you do, I think that you've given Timberlake enough reps now where you feel a little bit more comfortable, at least I would, putting him in situations. And that if they can get McCullough back healthy in time for the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament, you've got another weapon now that I feel slightly more comfortable putting Nick Timberlake out on the court when the time is important to do so.
I mean, they don't have a choice. They have to, right? He's going to have to.
But I'm saying
play.
If McCullough is back healthy, then at that point, I don't think you just throw Timberlake on the bench and never bring him out. I think he's in a position where he's gotten a little bit more used to basketball at this level and with this team and in the conference, that I would be okay, even if you have McCullough, to giving Timberlake a few more minutes as the game goes on.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's going to be important no matter what. And I agree. Like his development, I think what's been really crazy about this season is Timberlake, for fans I know, has been maddening, but you've always kind of known he's going to have to do something for this team to be successful. Upperclassman, maybe it does click for him late in the year. That would change everything that we think about KU. It would totally alter basically what we've seen all season long, right? If he all of a sudden is this contributing player, it's like, well, okay, let me rethink now. Now they do have a little bit of depth. Now they do have, that would be amazing. And he may get thrust into that role no matter what happens here. And maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to him. And honestly, for KU, if this is the injury situation with Kevin McCullough anyway, and we just talked about how unlikely it is they're going to be able to, win the Big 12 regular season, I mean, it does sort of lend itself to rest McCullough and let's see what Timberlake's got. Because one way or the other, they're going to have to do that. And that would make the rest of these games fascinating and put a lot of pressure on him. And the same thing exists for the freshmen. It just seems more likely that it's going to be Timberlake as an older player who steps up to that sort of challenge versus, a couple of true freshmen, right? That seems less likely.
Well, yeah, but I thought Jamari McDowell had some pretty good plays in the game against Texas. I'm not sure I'm going to trust him to be out on the court for an extended period of time right now as a freshman, but he was able, I think, to provide some fairly valuable minutes on Saturday.
I mean, both of those guys turned the ball over twice in 14 minutes. I think that's been the problem, right? Nick Timberlake turned it over once in 33 minutes. Now, he's been prone to that this year, but he didn't in this game. And that's the concern. That's always been the concern to me with all of these players you're trying to stretch the floor out with. Like, who's going to come in, give you the good defense, and not turn the ball over? It's been a problem for all three of them. And so, if one of them can figure that out, I don't know if Nick Timberlake's ever going to be able to just all of a sudden start shooting again. I don't even know how you predict that. I don't know. I mean, we've wondered that with players since the beginning of time, right? Why do they hit all these shots in practice, but it's just not translating? I don't know that answer. Maybe he can. But that's more than anything, they just need, hit a wide open shot for you. That would be nice. But come in, play defense, don't turn the ball over, right? You still have, even without McCullough, you still have 3 other, maybe 4, depending on DeJuan Harris is how he's feeling on it. Like you'd still be the 5th scoring option. Like no matter who that person is, you're either going to be the 5th or the 6th scoring option if McCullers there. That part of it just isn't as important as it's felt like people made it out to be, or at least it shouldn't be, because your other, you've got Dickinson, you've got KJ Adams, and you've got Furphy who stepped into that role. Those are all bigger scoring options. And hopefully DeJuan Harris is. Who knows? That's the age-old question with him, but they don't need Nick Timberlake to come in and hit a bunch of shots. They need Nick Timberlake to come in and not turn the ball over. Play some good defense, right? Get scrappy, that kind of stuff. And that does seem attainable. The freshmen, they may be too much to ask for them to come in and not turn the ball over. I mean, you know what I mean? Like maybe they're freshmen. That stuff takes time. Nick Timberlake's an upperclassman. He's been around basketball he knows how to play college basketball without turning the ball over. Just got to settle down a little bit. And if this opportunity, nobody likes the McCullough injury. The McCullough injury sucks. But it is an opportunity for KU to fix the thing that has plagued them all year long. If McCullough can't go and these other players get more confidence going into the tournament, it will make this team better than if McCullough played the last week and a half and these guys never stepped into that role they are so desperately needed in anyway.
But one of the ramifications of resting Kevin McCullough, now if he just can't go, then he can't go, and you have to deal with it.
Which is
but
which
if
is sort of the indication now, I think.
But if you're in a situation where he could maybe potentially go, the argument to resting him for the tournament, I understand. It is a reasonable thought to do to get him healthy to go for that run. But not only are you kind of waving the white flag with the Big 12 title race in the regular season, you're also potentially waving the white flag on a higher seed in the NCAA tournament at that point too. Like you don't want to get too far away from that. I mean, you're kind of securely, I feel like, on the 2 line right now. You could probably win your way in to a 1 seed, but you could also probably lose your way out of the 2 seed too if you're in a position where Kevin McCullough, you need to rest him. Because as great as that performance was against Texas, 3 of your last 4 regular season games are against teams that currently, as of right this second, are in the top 25. BYU is going to drop out today. They're in 25th, but you've got Baylor. They're a top 15 team. And then, of course, Houston in the final regular season game. And we all know about them. So you've got pretty tough competition down the stretch. You could play your way into a 1 seed if you have McCullough. If you don't, they could play their way out of a 2 seed. Not just with I'm not talking about just the regular season games. I'm talking about these final 4 games and then whatever you play in the Big 12 tournament.
Could KU end up as a 3? I mean, I suppose they could. I think it's probably pretty unlikely because they're going to play too many games at home between now and then for that to happen. I mean, if you want to know about Allen Fieldhouse, I mean, this weekend, without McCullough, that's wild. That's wild. So I think that's I don't know. I wouldn't sit him in the tournament. I'd be more inclined to sit him now because in the tournament, you have to know in the multiple game over stretches of days, like you have to know how he responds to that to get ready then for the NCAA tournament. So maybe it's limited, but I'd be far more interested in putting him on ice now and playing him in the tournament than vice versa. Because I do think Bill Self has to know what he can give them on a 2-game and 3-day stretch. He has to. And the only other time you're going to get that chance to see that is the Big 12 tournament. Again, this is all though like, and we'll. I think the best case scenario. It's all about what the trainers are saying.
Yeah, in my mind, I think the best case scenario would be you sit him tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to have him, I don't think, against BYU at home, but you rest him tomorrow. And maybe he can go on Saturday taking on Baylor and then the remainder of the 3 games in the regular season. That's what because you've got Houston and you've got the Sunflower Showdown in Allen Fieldhouse. So yeah, I think that would be best case scenario. Rest him tomorrow, see if he can go against Baylor, but then get him ready for the final week of the regular season.
Obviously, he would have interest as the last year to play Kansas State at home. which will become senior day or senior night, I guess it is. And then who doesn't want to go to Houston and take on number 1? That's going to be the other thing too, is keeping him out. We'll get with that. Top of the hour, Shreyas Laddha coming up. Let's chat quickly about K-State and Wichita State and what they did this weekend. We'll get then more in-depth with that in the second hour, but we'll do that before we get Shreyas Laddha on KU. That's next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily, Shreya Slaughter, our KU Insider, coming up top of the next hour. Let's set up a little giveaway here. HTO for you, a free iced tea and a free brew house coffee. Great weather this weekend to get out and enjoy some iced tea. But you can get an iced tea with this coupon, basically, at the Derby or either Wichita location. You can get the coffee at the East Wichita or Derby location. We'll do that for our first caller right now to the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Good luck. Tom and I will continue discussing this weekend of college basketball. K-State got one, Tommy. They had to have it, and they got it. And it was really, really good to see the Cats get that win this weekend. They handled their business, and it turns out, John Rothstein tweeted this morning that K-State does get, so basically the information we care about in that is that Cincinnati is a quad one game. So the meat on the bone is there for K-State. They jumped up to 73 in the net. So that's, they moved them 8 spots. That's a big time mover. It's a big time win. It's a big time, everything for KU. It becomes quad one. Now they'll have this game tonight, which we'll talk more about in the next hour, against West Virginia, which probably does nothing for their resume. They still need to win it. But then Cincinnati, Kansas, and Iowa State all become quad one opportunities. We know they'll probably have at least 1 or 2 of those in the Big 12 tournament. And so for K-State now, it is still on the table. Now they'll have to play really well. And can they do this on the road? They get West Virginia at home tonight, but Cincinnati, KU, they'll have back-to-back road games in that stretch. Got to have at least one of those. But really nice to see the Cats respond this weekend.
Yeah, it was for sure. And that's a game that they absolutely have to have in every game moving forward. They're going to have. They're going to have to do, some work here down the stretch. And I know that they've got a couple of quad one opportunities in the final couple of games. I was surprised. I wasn't considering Cincinnati on the road to be a quad one game, but it looks like it will be. And so that's a good news for Kansas State. You've got, another quick turnaround. You've got another quick Saturday to Monday turnaround. Now, the good thing is they get to stay home for both of them. West Virginia comes to town. West Virginia has not been a good basketball team this year. So you've kind of got a little bit of a warm up, and then all of a sudden you're, 2 out of your final 3 games are on the road, then in Lawrence for the Sunflower Showdown, and then finishing up at home against Iowa State. So it's a really after tonight's game for State, and every game matters with these quad one opportunities if they want to play their way back into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, here's what I love is that we're gonna be locked into all these K-State games down the stretch, right? They're gonna be a blast. Real quick, because we'll get more into them in the second hour. Wichita State, big win during the week. Disappointing outcome yesterday. They had a 10-point lead at home against Temple. Absolutely disappear in the second half offensively. Can't get it done. They get swept by Temple this year. Same thing we've seen all year. Not responding in a second half after a lead or whatever you want to call it. So it's certainly a disappointing Sunday for Wichita State. It was not a pleasant watch offensively, certainly at all in the second half. And, this is what it is. It's all pretty much going to be now what happens in the AAC tournament. That was a big opportunity for them to really gain any sort of momentum for the first time. And yet again, they can't win back-to-back games. You got to go all the way back to the end of November to see the last time that happened. And that was tough yesterday.
Yeah, wildly frustrating. The next to last home game of the season for Wichita State, a team that you lost to on the road earlier in conference play, with the chance to avenge that loss. You're up by 10 at halftime. You're feeling good about everything, and then the bottom just kind of falls out. And that's been, same song, different verse this entire season for Wichita State. I think in retrospect, as we look back on this season, which I'm not really sure a lot of people are going to want to do, I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time thinking about this season. But if you do look back on this season, really, I can't think of another identity of this team other than just a team that gets leads and then loses them in second halves of games and in overtime and loses games that they should win against opponents that they are better than. That's just the identity of this team, unfortunately. I wish it was a different identity. And we were all pretty fired up after the Tulsa win on Wednesday because we felt like it was a very physical game, a tough game, complete for the most part. The effort was there. I thought the first half yesterday was the same kind of way. And then things just kind of fell apart in the second half. So unfortunately, that's going to be the identity of this team.
Yeah, it's we'll get to the tournament and see what happens, I suppose. We can get more to that in the second hour as well. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Hour number 2 starts with Shreyas Laddha, our KU insider. We'll get the latest on what he's hearing with McCullough, that injury update, the status, maybe what the strategy might be here down the home stretch of the regular season. That's all next on Sports Daily.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's go now to the KU football and basketball beat writer from the Kansas City Star, Shreyas Laddha.
And welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Shreyas Laddha joining us now. We always appreciate the visits with Shreyas. Shreyas, the KU beat reporter for the KC Star. And Shreyas, I'm going to jump right into it. What is the latest? What are you hearing about Kevin McCullar's knee?
I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor. I think, with the way Bill was talking about it, that there's a really real chance he doesn't play the rest of the regular season. He was sore, I think, had trouble moving his knee. I think Bill said in his radio comments. It's something that I'm intrigued by, a little interested in, because bone bruises are something that are really scary. I was doing some research for story. A couple of years ago, NBA player Kendrick Nunn missed an entire NBA season because of a bone bruise. Obviously, Kansas fans remember Remy Martin, who had something similar happen a couple of years ago as well. So you have to be really cautious and really careful with it. We knew that he had it for a minute, and he played the Oklahoma game, retweaked it. So now I think it's super important that they play it safe, like Bill said, and maybe that cost them a potential Big 12 title. But having him ready for postseason play, whether that's Big 12 tournament play or March Madness, is so much more important, I think, than him playing in the remaining games the rest of the way. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be something that could potentially be something where he doesn't play the rest of the year or regular season or whatever. Bill seemed pretty unsure about it. And, you have to also remember that his draft stock is something that's pretty important. And I'm sure that's being thought about. And you want to be cautious about it, because right now he's projected as a mid-first or late lottery or whatever. And, there's a lot more at stake than just him coming back to play basketball for Kansas.
Is there a risk reward thing, Shreyas, with Kevin McCullar? Because, I feel like, first off, if he can't go, he can't go. So, that's the big thing. But if he potentially could, but they're just kind of trying to give him more rest and that sort of thing, I understand the importance of saving him for the postseason. But is there a scenario in your mind where if he doesn't play in the remaining regular season games, that potentially the seeding could be impacted by Kansas in the tournament?
Yeah, 100%. They could easily lose some games that they should have won with Kevin. But I expect them to hold serve at home. I expect them to beat BYU and Kansas State. And then Baylor and Houston were toss-ups even with Kevin. There's a real chance that they probably aren't favored in either one of those games with Kevin. And now without Kevin, they definitely won't be favored, So I definitely think there's a little bit of risk reward. Bill talked about it. They want 1 week of practice time before he plays in a game. He only had 2 days of practice time before he played in the Oklahoma game. So it's clear that, they want to be cautious about it, and they'd rather be safe than sorry. And I got a text a couple weeks ago when Kevin was kind of starting to deal with this stuff from an NBA draft evaluator, pretty highly respected. And he was like, "What's up with Kevin? Is it a knee? What's up with the knee?" People are wondering. So if, you're getting those kind of, if I'm getting those kind of texts from NBA draft evaluator, scouts and NBA teams are looking at what's really happening with the situation. And, I think it is so important that he doesn't rush it out there, because it could be a bigger deal than we realize it is. And like I mentioned, bone bruises can linger for a long time. You just really need to let it heal. Even if you play on it, there's a chance you retweak it like he did against Oklahoma and make it worse.
So, okay, let's assume that it's a problem the rest of the year. I think that's at least safe. How much of a problem, and how does it alter what they can do? Nick Timberlake got the nod at home and responded probably as well as he have. I maintain that they don't need him to be a scorer. That would be nice, but they really need him to just come in, play good defense, not turn the ball over. Timberlake's first guy up, right? And the 2 freshmen contributed as well, but that looks like that's probably, and it makes sense that it is, the plan in non-McCullough games is for that to be the way KU goes here.
Yeah, I mean, I expect him to continue starting. I expect him. It seems like he's better as a starter than as a guy coming off the bench. He's averaging 11.5 points a game on like 52% shooting in the 3 games he started. I think his scoring is important because Kansas at times has some scoring lulls. So having him play, add something on that offensive end is big, especially because you're missing 19 points per game from McCullough. And not to mention, like you said, obviously playing good defense. I think defense isn't necessarily a strong suit, but if you can play solid defense and not make too many mistakes on that end, that's big. The biggest thing you're missing with Kevin is obviously the leadership aspect of it, being a senior, but also like he's just a two-way player, and Nick Timberlake is not that. And I think we'll see the effects of that against teams that are really good. I mean, to put it bluntly, I don't think Texas was that good. That reaffirmed it on Saturday. And Kansas did what they should have done and then some. They had a dominant win. So let's see how Kansas responds against a team like Baylor or Houston on the road without Kevin McCullough. Because remember, when they played Texas Tech, who's okay but not amazing on the road without Kevin, they lost by almost 30. So I don't expect them to lose by 30, but I think you'll definitely see the effect of not having Kevin out there and how instrumental he is for this Kansas team.
Yeah, to that point, Shrees, the Jayhawks shot the lights out of the basketball on Saturday. 62% shooting, all 5 starters in double figures. Is that the Allen Fieldhouse effect, or are we starting to see this team turn a corner as far as shooting is concerned?
I think a little bit, but it's not like they took a lot of threes. They were just super efficient from 2-point land, like they have been this year. I think they only took 8 3-pointers. I mean, this Kansas team, like I said before, against teams like Texas where they're kind of middle of the road. I mean, no disrespect to Texas, they're good. They have a lot of talent, but they just haven't lived up to the expectations of what they were supposed to be this year. I don't think it really matters that much, but I don't think what the offense is right now is sustainable against teams like Houston, et cetera. Like, you just got to take more than 8 3-pointers in a game. And, it worked out because they were unsustainably hot from 2-point land. And, they made a couple of the threes that they did take. But, I'd say it's too early to say the current turn a corner because both of these wins have been against teams that I'm not sitting there and saying are very good. I mean, no disrespect to Oklahoma, no disrespect to Texas, but a win against Texas at home was impressive the way they did it, and a win on the road against Oklahoma on the road was pretty impressive as well. But I want to see it against the Iowa States, the Baylors, the Texas Tech, the Houstons of the world.
How much upside is left with Timberlake and the 2 freshmen? Do you think? Like, how much better in such a short period of time or different do you think those guys can be with an expanded opportunity, a known expanded opportunity? Because now we know that's coming. Do you think there's room for them to elevate their game here over the final week and a half, 2 weeks, and to get something else out of the NCAA tournament than what we've seen all season long?
100% I do. I think, you can see Jamar McDowell's play, right? He was an energizer off the bench for them. He had that steal that he led to a fast break dunk. He had that rebound that, went out of bounds that went to Kansas on the foul just by pressuring and trying to get the rebound. He can be better than he even is. I mean, like, he's been he played great on Saturday. Same thing with Omarco. They let him handle the ball, and he did a great job of facilitating. He ended with 4 or 5 assists. I think he can be better. And I'm sure there's going to be some Nick Timberlake games that he shoots well from deep alongside the stuff that he's already been doing. And, he can be a little better on that. And I definitely think there are ways for their upside to increase. I don't know how much, but I feel pretty confident that Jamari can keep, doing what he's doing, keep giving the energy and give him a little bit of spark, even if it's not scoring. And if Marco is the guy that they trust to kind of handle the ball and do some stuff off the bench, then we can really see how good a facilitator he is, which he is pretty good at that.
Well, that's a really good point about Nick Timberlake, Sharius. I was thinking about it as I was watching the game on Saturday, and all along this entire season, I've sort of kept Nick Timberlake in this box of a player that is, basically just going to be a deep threat, or at least that's what they want him to be, is a deep threat, and that really hasn't played out. But he did some things that I thought were pretty positive during the game against Texas. I know, that lob that, when DeJuan found him, that was like a Sports Center top 10 lob. It was incredible. And I started thinking, man, there might be some other things that Timberlake can do, regardless if McCullough is in the lineup or not, if he's healthy, where they might actually want to give him a couple of minutes to do other things than just shoot from three. Do you feel that way about him? Or is he still kind of in that box where he's got one purpose, and if he's not shooting the ball well from deep, he's not useful at all?
No, I do think that there is some things that he can do outside of shooting the ball from deep. He's clearly, his strength should be 3-point shooting. It hasn't necessarily translated as well this season. But, I think he can do some stuff. He can handle the ball here and there. He can, he can score in some different ways, the mid-range. And, he's nice for fast break points. And he's very hyper athletic, as Bill said. So if you get him out on a break, he's going to turn that into a dunk, like we saw that crazy DeJuan Harris lob to him, or a nice layup or whatever. So you want to use those talents and utilize it. It's not like he's a guy who's kind of a stiff and doesn't really do anything besides take threes. He's super athletic, and Kansas should take advantage of that. And I think he's getting a little more rebounds in the starting lineup. I think 3 a game or whatever, which isn't a ton, but for this Kansas team, that stuff helps. Being able to do these little things will go a long way. And, I think if Kevin is out an extended period of time, it's probably going to force Nick Timberlake to really get out of his shell and probably get a lot more confident in who he is, ideally.
Sharius Lotta joining us at SHRE98 on social media, KU Hoops, and football reporter for the KC Star. Sharius, I don't know if you've put on your bracketology hat yet. KU in the net right now is 14th. Most people have them as a 2 seed right now. They have 7 quad 1 wins, and they will have at least an opportunity for 2 more of those in the regular season. Then whatever comes in the tournament, how many of those quad 1 type games do you think they need to win to be able to put themselves maybe back on the radar for a 1 seed? Is it 3, 4? Because at that point, they'll probably have just as many as anybody else. Right now, it's Purdue and UConn each with 9. But can Kansas play themselves back into a 1 seed, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think, if they win against Houston, Baylor on the road, you're really talking about a potential 1 seed there, and that you're talking about maybe them winning the Big 12 championship. And then depending on how they do with the tournament, that's another big thing. But yeah, I really don't think it's, 2 weeks ago, if you had asked me that question, I'd be like, it kind of depends on what happens against Oklahoma, kind of depends what happens against Texas. But I'm starting to warm up a little bit on this Kansas team. Obviously, Kevin McCullough's health is the biggest thing that I'm a little worried about. But I think, they have shown when they're locked in, their defense can be really good and at times. And, when they have some rest in between games, it seems like they're just a completely different team. And I think they're a better tournament team than they are a regular season team. But yeah, just kind of going back to that, I think they could easily, if things go right, end up at the 1 seed line.
Well, BYU tomorrow night comes to town, Sharius. They'll be inside Allen Fieldhouse for a 7:00 tip. The Cougars currently, as of right this second, are 25th in the top 25. But after a loss to Kansas State on Saturday in Manhattan, I can't imagine that they'll stay in the top 25. What do we know about BYU? And what do you think the Jayhawks will need to do to follow up the performance on Saturday with another good one tomorrow night?
Yeah, BYU is an incredible offensive team. They're top 10 in the nation in offensive efficiency per 100 possessions. They basically score 121 points per 100 possessions, which is 9th in the nation, which is pretty dope. They are really, really good at manufacturing 2-point shots inside, inside the arc. They're really good at at the top 10 in the nation and scoring percentage in there. So they shoot efficiently. They're good at getting quality shots. Their defense is kind of middle of the road. It's top 75, not amazing, but they're okay on that end. I think they have an ability to cause Kansas some problems because of their way of, being able to score inside. It's going to come down to Hunter Dickinson's rim protection and KJ Adams' ability to kind of move around and be a little bit of a roamer on the defensive end. But I think they're going to be a fun matchup for Kansas because, teams that shoot the three well, which they're kind of okay at, are usually a hard matchup for Kansas. BYU doesn't shoot the three amazingly well, so that is a good thing for this Kansas team.
All right, what's your prediction here, Shreyas? We've got these games left. We've got BYU, Baylor, Kansas State, Houston. Well, let me just simply ask you this. Where is KU playing in the NCAA tournament? Is it Omaha? Is it 2 seed? Are they a 1 seed? Where do you put it? And I know the McCullough thing makes this a really difficult question, but it's hard not to sort of re-energize and get re-excited with what happened over the last week and their possibilities. So what do you think here down the home stretch? What are they going to be able to get to?
I think they're playing Omaha. I think they're playing as a 2 seed in Omaha. I think the next 4, they win 3. I don't know which one they lose. I'm going to guess probably Houston. And I think they get a nice win against Baylor on the road. I think they'll beat BYU, even though they shoot a ton of threes. They're not amazing at making threes. Kansas seems like they've switched their defense a little bit on ball screens, which means their 3-point defense is a little better. I think it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out because, if you enter the Baylor game and Kansas is completely out of the race, I wonder how many minutes Bill will play some of these starters. I mean, he said, you talked about playing these guys 33 minutes instead of 36 minutes, how big of a difference that makes. I'm curious if that trend continues to happen because you want these guys fresh for Big 12 tournament and really more importantly, March Madness.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And we've wondered that all year. All right, well, we'll watch it. As we mentioned, BYU up next. That game is tomorrow night. That game is at home, 7:00 tip time. You can find Shreyas' work at the KC Star. Shreyas, we appreciate it. We'll talk again next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
There goes Shreyas Latta. Always appreciate those visits. If you joined us late, missed any of it, you can go back and find it for free on the Odyssey app. You can find lots of things on that app, by the way. Kansas State men's basketball broadcasts are available live for free on 97.5 and 1240. They play tonight. You can also find those on the Odyssey app. Tune into KFH tonight for K-State basketball. Wildcats hosting West Virginia. You can simply download the Odyssey app and search KFH at game time. We've got a couple other things happening. You've got a court storming situation to get to there with Duke, one of the star players in the country, got banged up in a court storming. So we'll go back and, hit that topic that never gets old a little bit, as well as a few other things in the sports world at Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor coming right back. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Our appreciation to Shri Aslata for joining the show. You can get in touch with us now. KFH hotline open the rest of the way, 869-1240. Tommy, let's talk about this Filipowski situation. Wake Forest beats Duke. We were watching that game out the sports book this weekend. They stormed the court. Exciting win for them. But Kyle Filipowski gets caught up in the storm. Knee injury. I am a proponent, probably more so than others, of being fine with court storming. I don't care. Field storming doesn't bother me. I don't think there's the etiquette or we're better than that and all that. I'm like, whatever. Those kids individually, right, may have never had the opportunity to do something like that. People like to say, well, I'll use KU as an example because it comes up all the time. Well, KU, we don't do that, right? We may have done that. Those kids there, they don't get to go to all the games. They've never been able to be excited. That's a fun thing to be able to do. But the problem for me, the only problem with it is player and coach safety. So I have no issue with court and field stormings. I think they're a blast to be in the middle of. I think they're fun and exciting and awesome and cool. But there is a safety component, and you have to be able to get players and coaches off of the floor in those moments. So I guess with the Filipowski thing, it sucks. I hate it that it happened, but I'm kind of like towing both sides of that line on this one. Like, I don't have a problem with the Wake Forest people ran out and got excited about that win, but you have to have a system in place, these schools and everybody, to be able to get those guys out of there safely.
If the schools really wanted to stop this, they would. I mean, they could put as many measures in place to make sure that fans are not coming out of the stands. I mean, and
It'd be pretty
they
hard
might
to stop it.
Yeah, but you could put some things in place at all these different arenas to keep it from happening. You really could. It would require more of an investment from game to game. It would require you to pay more security. It would require you to have some kind of barrier that you build from keeping, fans from coming from their seats onto the court. It's not going to be just a handful of ushers that are going to keep fans from jumping out of the stands and going onto the court. It's a little bit different in basketball when you've got fans that in a lot of these arenas are kind of right on top of the court. So you've got to try to find a way, if you really want to stop this, to create barriers and things like that to make that from happening. And keep in mind also that multiple conferences have punishments that they put into place for the teams that their fans storm the court. The one conference that doesn't, the ACC, they don't have any kind of punishment for schools that their fans storm the court. So the SEC is the most penalizing if fans storm the court for a potential team. I think it's like $100,000 fine. They don't have that in the ACC, and so I'm sure that's something they're looking at too.
So the fans aren't going to pay that. So that fine, I think, means nothing to fans in the moment.
But it gives the incentive to the school to prevent it from happening. That's why they have those fines in place.
You can only do so much, though. Like, if those fans want to come out there, we're going to arrest 10,000 kids. You can't do. It's not enforceable. I think being honest with the situation would be the best policy. And that's to say, and the problem is, and you'd have to remind them throughout a game, because most of the time when that happens, it's a really exciting inning. It'd be one thing if, you're blowing Duke out of the water and you come over the PA and say, hey guys, we don't have a problem if you come on the court. You have please wait till, players leave the court and then come on down. Right. I think that probably could go a long way. But you can't do that in the moment, so it's really difficult, right? You don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe there's signage you can put up. Please, you must wait for players to exit the floor before you come on the floor. If not, you are prone, to be arrested. If you really want to stop it, that's the only thing you can do.
I heard Jay
security
Billis
guard saying, let's not do this, isn't going to get it done.
I heard Jay Billis on ESPN saying, make a suggestion that if you really wanted to stop this, then you let all these fans come onto the court and then you keep them on the court. You block off the exits, and all the people who are on the court are getting citations, or tickets or something from police that are coming on and one by one handing tickets to everybody that came down on the court. Like, let them come down here, but once you do, we're not going to let you leave until you take the ticket, and then you have to pay a fine. The fans do for coming out on the court.
It's hard. Like, it's so much easier on a football field because there's more space, right? Like the risk is lessened. And I was there when Jamari McDowell was shoved by the fan. Like, I was in the middle of that scrum. So I've seen the bad parts of it too. And again, it comes when the opposing players are out there. And so I don't know how you do it. I'm just trying to be like realistic about it. It's funny too, because we don't have this issue at like music shows, right? Like, better. You try to do that at a music show or a pro event, and you will get arrested.
Yeah.
You'll go to jail. So, in college, and I'm not saying that like because it's easier to stop it. I'm saying it because there's not the perception that it's okay to do it, right? Like we know, like, unless you're gonna rush on the field and get tackled by security guards or whatever in the pros, it's just a different dynamic and a different animal. And I don't know what the best solution is. I don't want to take it away because I think it's a great college experience for young people and fun. And I think being fired up for your school and everything is a good thing and something that you'd want. K-State's handled it, and they had Jerome Tang help handle it. Like, don't come down here, we'll come up there. Like, that's kind of been their famous thing. Like, you don't need to come down here. We're going to come to you and celebrate. And that's a good, it's worked, right? It has worked for them. And I don't know how you can do it because, again, like in the situation with Wake Forest and Duke, it was so in the moment that there's not really like a preparation you can do. If Wake Forest wins that game, by 12, wire to wire, whatever, you're probably not going to see that happen. It's because it came down to the wire and everybody in the moment gets so excited and they rush, it's just like, oh my God, we did it, and you run out there. So I'm just trying to be realistic at like, what are actual solutions? Unless you want to come in and like holistically take it out of college sports, I don't know how enforceable any of it actually is. Because we know we're not supposed to do it at a pro event, at a concert, at a, whatever. But in college, it's been accepted and been allowed, and tearing down the goalpost and like all these things. But that's a part of why we love college sports. That's what I'm afraid to lose, right? Like, those are the things that make college sports unique and cool that the pro sports don't offer. So where is that common ground? I don't know. But I think at minimum, it's got to be an expectation from fans that come on down, but you cannot come until the other team is out of here. Can't do it. Too many bad things can happen. And if everybody would just retrain their brains that way. Look, I'm watching the video right now. Like, you got cheerleaders running out there. Like, you got I don't know what you're going to do. Like, you got university people get caught up in the moment of it. So I don't know. I just don't think there's an easy answer. That's the hard part.
Here's the other thing about it. I think that, you watch these broadcasts and you've got teams that are storming the court. Wake Forest did it on Saturday. And it's not only something that historically has been just kind of accepted or turn a blind eye to, at least from the media's perspective. And I know Jay Bill has talked about this too earlier today. It's celebrated. You watch the end of that game and they've got wide camera shots on it and the announcers are, fans are storming the court, whatever. But then, somebody gets hurt in that moment, and 48 hours later, the same broadcasters are now condemning it. It's like, okay, so if you're going to not want to have court storming be a thing, and this isn't going to solve it necessarily, but maybe don't celebrate it. Maybe cut away, maybe cut the cameras away, go to commercial. Hey, we're not going to show these fans storming the court, because you can't have it both ways. You can't celebrate it in the moment, but then a couple of days later say it's the worst thing ever, for college basketball. So I think you've got to try to find a way to, at least in that regard, you can anticipate if you're one of the announcers there in the building, you can anticipate, you can feel the energy, and you can probably see with a minute or two left that people are approaching, getting ready to do this. At that point, there are people that are directing these broadcasts. okay, if Wake Forest wins the game, we're cutting away from this because we don't want to celebrate it or condone it or whatever.
Well,
that's not going to happen, but I'm saying that you can't have it both ways.
As broadcasters, I will wholeheartedly and fundamentally say it's never ESPN's responsibility and obligation to not show us what's happening. In fact, it's the opposite. They have an obligation to
but then you can't feign outrage
us on what's happening.
If you're ESPN, that's 2 days later, you can't feign
ESPN
outrage.
Isn't. Personalities that work on ESPN are, but ESPN it's like withholding. This is totally a different scenario, but I think it'll make sense. So sometimes when bad things happen, we'll hear from people on TV, especially, well, let's not show it. Let's not give any attention to XYZ. And I totally understand that train of thought, and I've been there. But at the same time, we have to know as the public in general, and we're talking about bad things and things like you like it is the job of ESPN, of news outlet, whatever, to inform the public on what is happening. It's a slippery slope, right? To try and stop. So ESPN should report on what's happening. Like
you mentioned the pro game. If there's ever anybody that runs onto an NFL field, they don't show the guy who's running on the field. They might talk about it. They might, there's a, lunatic running on. It happened in the Super Bowl. Guy jumped from the stands, was across the field on the other side. They never put the camera on him. I know it's one person compared to 2,000 or 3,000 that are rushing the court.
It is,
but they don't. It's a long held policy in the pro game. It happens in baseball too. You got a guy that jumps on the field. They don't show the guy running on the field. This is not, that part of it's
Kevin Harlan
new.
gives us play-by-play when it happens.
Sure, but they're not. But they do that because they don't want to encourage the next idiot to jump out on the field and do it to get camera time. That's why they do it.
I totally get it. I do think they're a little bit different. And I do think it's a case-by-case scenario. I'd also be curious to know if that agreement has something to do with like league saying, hey, don't show that. Now, if the NCAA wanted to step in and say, ESPN, we don't want you to show court, then that's different. That's a broadcast agreement. It's a little bit different. But I'm just saying, like, it's a part of it. And it is hypocritical because it's a part of the college game we all love, right? It gets us all excited, yet a player gets hurt and we hate that. And look, I'm not naive to the fact either that terrible things happen in things like this when people get trampled. Like, it's dangerous. And so the inherent danger of it could be enough to just say no more. But I don't think we're going to like when that happens. I think there's a gray area to everything. And I think if you want to have more security, that's never a bad thing. And that security warning fans as it's happening, like, guys, we know you want to come out here. We're going to give you a chance to do it. But if you do it before we say it's good to go, you're gonna get arrested. Like, you're going to be in big trouble. So wait. We'll tell you when you can come. You can come, but we'll tell you when you can come. And then you have enough time. Get the players off the floor. It takes 30 seconds. You get with the coach. You say, no handshake line, guys. Like, we're getting off the floor tonight. Goodbye. And then you've got security saying, okay, now, because they do that anyway. There's in the video, you can see some people saying, okay, you can come, like, just so maybe it's a timing thing, like all of it. But it is so dangerous. Caitlin Clark, I'm looking at video from a game against Ohio State, was hit by and that was one person running out there with their cell phone, not paying attention. So
there was a famous Sunflower Showdown a few years ago.
That's the one I'm
talking about. Was pinned up against the scores table, and Bruce Weber had to help him, like, push people away to pull Bill Self out of the scrum to get him out of there and back into the locker room. I mean, these things this is nothing new. I feel like this conversation comes up, every couple of years when there's an incident, and there are far too many incidents that are happening. And unfortunately now, this season, you've had two different examples, one in the women's game, one in the men's game, of a star player getting injured in this, where before it was just you had a coach pinned up against a table like with Bill Self.
Jamari McDowell was shoved, right?
Jamari
I was
Traylor,
there
yeah,
for that one.
he was
Sorry,
shoved.
yeah, Jamari Traylor.
He was, shoved in, and it was in an open enough setting where, and a picture was taken where they could see who did it, and that person was punished and all of that. But these things happen pretty regularly now, to a point to where, there's got to be a way to legislate it. There's got to be a way to enforce it.
I agree.
I think that, and I do understand preserving the organic excitement of college athletics and not wanting to stifle that. I'm not trying to be, cold about all of this, but also if you want to cite player safety, there are now 2 examples of not only just general players, but star players getting injured as a direct result of people rushing the court.
It's a part of some of our fondest college sports memories. I do think it's different in football. I think there's far less likelihood of anything bad happening in football because you've got more space. Basketball seems to be the bigger issue. I just think there has to be some regulation on it, but I think taking it away is next to impossible. Let's go to Tom on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Tom, what's on your mind? You got a thought on this court storming situation?
Yeah, they get. There's never more than 5 of the other team on the court at a time. You get 5 big guys that are like security guards. As the second the game's over, those 5 guys go to those 5 guys and protect them until they get them off the court. It wouldn't be that hard for one big guy to just kind of like usher a guy off the court.
Yeah, create a human shield. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and that's where I think at minimum you just have to figure that safety piece out. We appreciate the call, Tom. And yeah, more security helps. My only thing with like adding more, like at some point you're not keeping those fans off you can't stop 10,000 people from doing that. Not in the moment anyway. And so like, can we just like come up with general societal rules of engagement? You need to wait. You'll get to come out. You'll get to have fun, but not until we tell you it's okay to do it. You got to give us like 1 minute. We'll get people off the floor. We'll move on. No big deal. Everybody come have a good time and celebrate. It's not going to solve all the problems, but you can't have players getting hurt. I mean, you just can't. You cannot have people getting hurt. Not that aren't engaged. Like, right. Like if I choose to run out there and trip and fall and get hurt, that's my own fault. Right? I made that choice, but the players aren't making that choice. The players just need to be able to get off. I hated that. I hated that because you love the excitement of the Wake Forest win. Steve Forbes, former show, you're excited about all that. Then, oh yeah, they're still, yeah. And then you see that Kyle Philpowski gets hurt and you're just like, it makes you sick to your stomach. 869-1240. We'll come back. Shout out to Shocker Baseball, by the way, Tommy. It's early in the season, so it like way early in the season, but a win over number 18 Iowa. They had a chance, almost got it done against number 14 Virginia. So a handful of impressive performances out of 3 games that we knew would be a tough weekend, but nice weekend for them. They come home finally on Friday. We'll get our chance to see them in person, but Shocker Baseball is, I don't want to say it's off to a great start because they're 3-3, but they've certainly piqued our interest, right? They've certainly got our attention here.
Yeah.
Early.
Well, and early on, I mean, it only took 6 games, but you already have the first signature win of the Brian Green era at Wichita State by knocking off a ranked opponent. So
you almost had 2. They almost got it twice.
A long way to go, obviously, but I think it's for a team that we knew literally nothing about going into this year. I think you've got to be pretty happy with the way the season has started.
Yeah, it is encouraging for sure. Softball, kind of know what we're going to get. Baseball, a lot of questions, and they're giving us good positive signs. We're excited about that. Shocker Baseball, of course, you're here with us on KFH, so we're looking forward to hopefully a good season for Wichita State baseball. I'm still waiting for a postseason appearance, and it's in my time here. It's like I can't believe that they haven't been there. I'm so excited for their chance to do it. We'll come back, more Sports Daily right after this. Tommy, remain fascinated about the Bears and what they're going to do. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr. not going to work at the Combine. Would you work at the Combine? By the way, like I know people, it's always an interesting discussion. If I'm those guys, I don't think I'm working at the Combine.
What's the point? What are you going to gain?
You've
nothing
seen me
to
play
gain.
football. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you've seen me play. Now, I don't want to discount the Combine. The Combine is an incredible resource for players who do not have the type of spotlight that those players have. I know that like on-campus workouts and things that happen in those sort of environments gain guys opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. There's a guy named Brian Brayman when I was in college. And I think I'm pretty sure, like, so what happened in West Texas A&M was like a factory for players. But what would happen is these teams, they would come, they organized a big workout, like a mini combine for the region. And so you'd have players from there, players from Tech would come up, and they would work for these scouts. Guys got NFL jobs by doing that. Like, he was a freak athletically. He was, you probably don't remember, he was like a special teams lunatic in the NFL for a while, just a wildly gifted athlete. But he came in, and I was at that workout. I think he was on the bench. It was something like, they were like, I could just see those scouts like all just kind of like their eyes were like, what on earth is this? And he had a decent little NFL career. Same kind of thing happened for Kyrie Williams, who was a running back for a while. But so I love that the combine is there. I think it's fun and cool. But yeah, like if I'm Caleb Williams, if I'm Marvin Harrison Jr., no chance am I getting out there in shorts and a t-shirt and giving anybody any ammo not to draft me as high as they can, because it's simple. Like, why aren't you working out? Go look on tape if you want to see how I play football.
Yeah, I've watched Marvin Harrison, and the entire world has, make incredible, insane catches over the course of his college career. And nothing that is going to happen in a combine, in my opinion at least, is going to change that opinion that I have of him. If anything, if the only kind of opinion that it would change is maybe more to the negative, if he didn't, handle something incredibly well, if his 40 time wasn't great, things like that.
Tests they have to take or whatever.
The crap or whatever it is.
Even are. Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, Marvin Harrison is a human highlight reel and basically was his entire college career. So in the case of him, especially, I even think him over Caleb Williams. Yeah, you got nothing at all to prove, so why would you want to go and do that? I do, like you mentioned, I do absolutely understand the appeal of it for players that are trying to improve their draft stock. But for guys at the very top, there's no benefit.
It didn't ultimately cost him his spot, but think about Bryce Young. It was last year at the combine, right? When he was standing next to people or got measured or whatever. And everyone's like,
and he was short.
Now,
you wondered if he could see over everybody.
Yeah. No, I like for those guys, I just don't know that there's much to gain. It's what's Jaden Daniels is interesting, right? He's one that, has a lot of people perked up and you got a Heisman and all these things, but you got to remember too, like, is that an opportunity he could come in and maybe wow people even more? Maybe. I think his is maybe a little bit more fringy, but also bad things can happen too. And you could, like, a couple of things don't go your way in a workout like that, and now all of a sudden you slip in a draft board and do all these things. The other thing about the combine is, like, guys have to train specifically for those workouts, right? They're not necessarily training for football things at that point. Then they're training to run a 40 faster, or whereas like Caleb Williams can now like legitimately just go laser focus on being an NFL quarterback and get probably the most extensive work in doing that with some of the great professionals in the world that he's ever had before. Think about like the work Rashee Rice did with Patrick Mahomes reportedly right before he was drafted.
Yeah.
He took a bunch of college prospects and worked them. Like, that kind of stuff will have more value for those guys than a combine. Again, no disrespect to the combine. I love the combine. I'm glad it's there for guys, but not for the top guys. I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, I think the only knock on him was that even though he had great individuals, he really wasn't leading LSU to victories, as much as he probably could have. So there might be some things he could do in the combine to maybe help improve that draft stock. I don't know. He is kind of fringy. That one surprises me.
Yeah. We'll get into him as a prospect at some point. I don't know what to make of him as a prospect yet. I'm totally undecided and absolutely reserve the right to be undecided. I need to really dig in. I'm not sure what to make of him as a prospect. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network today as we wrap up Sports Daily on a Monday.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Eric Bieniemy apparently headed to UCLA to be the new offensive coordinator. That just dropping, according to ESPN. The Wichita Wind Surge just announced their new general manager, Matt Hamilton. Full disclosure, is a buddy of mine. We worked together a while back in Amarillo. Our friends were excited about that. Have him here in Wichita. He'll do good things for the Wind Surge. We'll get more into that as that season looms. You've got all kinds of stuff locally here tonight. K-State men's basketball pregame coverage at 5. So that means the Terry Nooner show at 6, the Paul Mills show at 7. Move over to KNSS tonight. Tune in for all of it or find it on the Odyssey app. Dom and I'll be back tomorrow. See you then.